I can't just be a leader and they'll do what I say. I have to lead by example, and I think that was the first time I'd kind of really seen that at a young age.
I never want anyone to look at me and say, you're not working hard enough.
That's the other thing that stands out to me is like we have to be able to let them make mistakes.
You're not always the right person to do the job, and probably in most cases you're duplicating effort as well when you are doing that task or that process.
Welcome to the How They Lead podcast, hosted by Benjamin Wade and Ben Stocker. This podcast is dedicated to exploring the world of high performance, showcasing examples of how individuals and teams can reach their full potential.
Together, they'll be inviting amazing guests who have defined or represented high performance in their own right, from world record breakers to individuals who have achieved first in their fields. The How They Lead podcast will showcase a diverse range of guests, each with their unique stories and insights to share. So join us as we challenge traditional ways of doing things, explore new ideas, methods and possibilities, and evolve the way people perform.
Hello, welcome to How They Lead, our latest podcast episode, where we delve into the backgrounds of unique and interesting people, business leaders from all different backgrounds and businesses. Today we're fortunate enough to have, a first for us, two co-founders, Sara and Lisa. Why are we fortunate enough to have you on our podcast today? What are your backgrounds, and what's unique about the two of you that we're going to find out all about in this episode?
Well, thanks for having us. Yeah, very excited to be here. Feel slightly a fraud, as I don't have an Olympic world record and I haven't sailed across the Atlantic, which I think most of your other podcasters have. So we'll do our best. But I'm Lisa. I'm a co-founder of 15 West. We are a search-to-search business globally, and we help high growth recruitment businesses scale across the USA.
Perfect, cool. Thank you.
Very cool. Sara, who the hell are you?
My name's Sara Mcphee. I'm the other co-founder of 15 West. I run our US business and help UK headquartered businesses scale their companies in America, basically.
Excellent. And you say you haven't sailed across or rowed across the Atlantic, but you kind of did by opening an office over there.
That's true.
Well,
Should we take? Yeah, we'll take that as a win.
Take that as a tenuous link.
We've sailed across the Atlantic quite a few times, so I think we'll take that.
Yeah, cool. Okay, we'll take that. So Ben, bit of background for you. So I have known Sara and Lisa for, I think, about 4 years. About 4 years now. We met in COVID times, and somehow I ended up on a Women in Tax webinar.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Women in Tax webinar.
Yep.
And that's how I met
Sara
and Lisa.
I don't know how we ended up on it either.
How did that go?
I think it went well.
Okay.
I'm not sure why I was there, but I hope I added a little bit of value. But the benefit was got to meet Sara and Lisa, and then got to learn a bit about 15 West, and we've had the pleasure at West Peak of kind of supporting you both and the team for the last 3 years. So I think you're up there with a founding client of West Peak. So thank you very much.
One of our longest serving clients.
That's great. Yeah, I remember in that session were you talking about the OWL method or something about being good in the night or in the morning? Was that a thing?
Yeah.
Can you just explain a little bit more about that, Sarah? Yeah. It sounds like you remember it well. What was the OWL method?
Oh, wow. Okay.
I don't know if that's what it was called. But no, it was about how people operate.
Night owl in the morning?
Yeah, how people operate at better at certain times of the day, and how you should use that information to put into your day and put harder tasks in the part of the day where you're going to operate better. There you go.
Bingo. Look, knowledge
Nailed
bomb
it.
right there. Yeah. So and everyone who's watching and listening, we didn't prepare this. So that's knowledge retention from 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So in terms of West Peak ROI, I mean,
Done.
I mean, it was probably about circadian rhythms, and how people are better at different times of day. But I'll take the OWL method.
The OWL method.
There was definitely an owl mentioned.
I mean, it's probably a good point to start with. How have you found using the OWL method when you've been operating in overseas? You've got New York, the time differences between London and New York. Has it been beneficial?
Yeah, I think that's definitely been useful in kind of like how you kind of set yourself up for your day. But I think some of the challenges we've had is just, I suppose we're operating in different time zones. Me and Lisa, until last September, that was the first time we'd worked together in the same time zone. I've been in New York and she's been in London. So how we operate in those times is great, but it's not necessarily how the other person operates. So do you see what I mean? It's kind of trying to tie those things in together, which I think is a bit harder.
And how have you found operating together? Obviously, we'll probably delve back into those time zones, but obviously Ben and I working together, I hope that we complement each other in terms of our skill sets. I think we do. But how have you found, obviously, co-founders working together? Have you got unique skill sets that complement each other, or is there a bit of healthy conflict there?
I think we're actually quite similar in our approach, and that's kind of why we kind of were drawn to each other in the first place, I think, because we very much, in terms of our process and our thinking, have the same sort of thought process and kind of values, I guess, and that's what kind of really sort of put us together in the first place. But I think I think Sara's probably much more of a more kind of empathetic, leader than maybe I am, and I think she's I think she's a much better recruiter than I am as well, and I think you say you always want to work with people that are better than you, and that's kind of why I wanted to start a business with Sara in the first place, because she's definitely got a lot of skills that I don't. So
no, I think, as Lisa said, I think sometimes our similarities are our downfall. I think sometimes it would be good if we had, a few more probably conflicts than we do have, because sometimes we just agree with each other and crack on, and we probably need someone to be like, actually, should we think about that instead? So yeah, but I do think, I agree with Lisa, we're quite different in terms of our leadership styles, and I think what Lisa's really good at is, if she's really good at kind of hammering something, a point, and just hammering it until it's done. She won't let it go. Whereas I feel like I'm always like, okay, well, we've done that now, let's move on to something else. And I think it's really important to make sure we've got that kind of follow through, and if we say something, we say we're going to do something, we've got to actually hold people to account. I'm always a bit like, oh, but they're okay now, we'll move on. So we do balance each other out well in that respect. Like Lisa's probably got more of the kind of discipline side, and I'm more on the empathy, I would say.
So are we talking good cop, bad cop here? Is that
essentially?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's really interesting. It's really interesting because I would say that so Ben and I are very, very similar, I think, in terms of like interests and interests outside of work, like sporting wise, adventure, family, but actually probably in work, we're probably quite contrasting.
Yeah, I think so.
And I'm likely to be the person that's like, oh, shiny over here. Let's go do the shiny. And Ben's like, yeah, but like from a consistency perspective, we said we were going to do this. And I think, and so we need to do that. Otherwise we just go around in circles. And so if I was on my own running West Peak, we would probably just go around in circles. It would be fun, chaotic. I'd cry a lot and we go around in circles. And I think conversely, you would probably have a very kind of steady trajectory, but there wouldn't necessarily be as much ideation. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think they complement each other. Yeah. So we've still got the best bits of both. We've got the ideas and then the process to back it up.
Yeah.
I would say that's quite similar to us as well, because Lisa's very creative. Like some of the best things we've implemented in our business, like Lisa's come up with the idea. Like she's always got these amazing ideas and concepts and things that she wants us to do. I'm the one that's kind of like, right, this is the process. But this is what we said we were going to do at the beginning of the year, like in terms of our client stuff and how we present ourselves in the market. But I think if I carried on like that, we would probably never do anything exciting ever, and we'd just be a boring recruitment company.
I'm a little bit like, this is a new shiny toy and I kind of run after that, but I want it to be like amazing and shiny and crack on, whereas Sarah's a bit like, well, should we finish this first?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
You both mentioned your leadership styles as well, or Sarah, you mentioned your leadership style. What would you define yours as? And then we'll hear from Lisa. If you're going to put it into a sentence, what is your style?
So I was thinking a lot about this actually, because I don't think you often get a lot of time to actually sit and reflect on how you present yourself as a leader within your business. But I think I'm, as a leader, I'm very good at kind of consistently reinforcing our like message. So whether it's our values, whether it's our process, and I do that by leading from the front, but also through my interactions with my team. I would say that's probably my leadership style.
And is that the style that you want to project? Because quite often we get given a style and it's not necessarily the one that we want or that we want to project.
I do, yeah, I do think it is the style that I want to project. Definitely, yeah.
Can we just? Lisa's making some notes. I think she's making some notes. So I'm gonna stick with Sarah because I want to give her a bit more space to sculpt her answer. So Sarah, you've got kind of a consistent, empathetic but consistent and accountability to how you lead. How does that manifest itself day to day? Like if I was being led by you, if I was fortunate enough to be like Fran or whatever, what does that look like on a day to day basis?
So, like a big part of that is probably, the communication and how I communicate with the team. So making sure that that's really clear and they know what's expected of them and what they should be doing. We have quite structured communication. So, and it's really boring, but obviously it's just kind of like with my team, I do a lot of daily calls and weekly updates as a collective, but I do a lot of one-on-ones with my guys and going through what they're doing and how they're set up for that day. And we do have quite a new team, so I think that's quite important. Obviously, as people get more experience, that would drop down. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is just having that kind of clear communication, like making sure people understand, what is expected of them, and they've got the projects and they're really laid out and very clear, and then making sure that that's being followed up on. So, we're checking in regularly on how that's being managed and does that kind of like draw back to what we've said we're going to do and our plan at the beginning of the year or the beginning of the quarter, and then just making sure that the guys are constantly rewarded for that, like whether it's through positive reinforcement, whether it's through like money or career progression or whatever that might be. So that's probably how I would do it.
Thank you. Lisa, you ready?
I'm ready.
Cool. Let's go. So how do you lead?
Well, it's a really interesting one. Like Sarah said, I'm like, gosh, we spent 4 years running this business and never really thought about it. It's just kind of evolved, and you kind of, like you say, just sort of turn into a leader. But I would have said from work ethic and like honesty and kind of creating solutions for people as well. That's kind of how I like to lead. And I did actually ask Taylor like just before. I was like, how do I lead? I was like, actually, what would you say? And he said, the first thing he said, with confidence, which was interesting. I was like, yeah, what does that mean? And he said, well, it just means I know that I can come to you and you'll provide a solution. And it's the same with clients. Every time you're in a client meeting, you're always solutions based, even if sometimes you're winging it, basically, which is true. But I'll always try and create that solution. I never want anyone to look at me and say, you're not working hard enough, for example. And that's where the work ethic piece comes from.
I've got a question, if that's all right, just from something you've just said, which comes up quite often.
I feel like I know what you're going to say. I feel like I know what you're going to ask.
Well, if you want to go first, then what do you think you're going to ask? And then that'll probably lead into a different conversation.
Well, this is a guess, but what are you doing to help them create their own solutions? Is that kind of what you were going to say?
That's a very good question.
That's a great question.
So that leadership style is great, and being confident. Have you ever been hampered by always providing the solution, as Sarah's just alluded to? Is that an issue, draining your capacity, or how do you cope with that?
Yeah, I think, and this is something that Ben has obviously helped us with over the years. Probably haven't mastered it at all, but yeah, just kind of always being available for people, and that's probably hampering their development. So it's, you know, we've really tried to sort of learn when people do come to us and say, right, I've got this problem, like rather than just fixing it, like my default is, right, I'll fix it for you. Instead of asking me what to do, come to me with a solution. So I've been a good student then, and you know, or come to me with three outcomes that you think could be, you know, this scenario, and 9 times out of 10 they know it. So, you know, and it's like, you should have the confidence or the courage for convictions, but also giving them the space to say that it's all right if it's not the right answer. Like, you know, go back to that client and that, you know, I want to write this to this client. I was like, well, you know the client, you know, have the courage of your convictions. Is this email okay? I don't need to read that email, you know, just send it, and no one's going to die if it's wrong. Do you know what I mean? So just make mistakes, but I think we have made a bit of a rod for our own back in terms of doing a lot of the stuff without making them empowered to do it.
It's difficult though, isn't it? Because you think you're helping and you've been there, you've done it, you could probably do it far quicker. So yeah, it's always difficult to breach that gap. I think a good response that we had recently was, what would you do if I wasn't here?
Yeah.
And then just sort of brainstorm the solutions that come out of that if they haven't thought about it already. But yeah, you refer to hero mode quite a bit, don't you?
Yeah, I was like, get out of my head. I was about to talk about hero mode. I mean, we've talked about like wearing capes and stuff like that. And we're like, from a physiological perspective, like, because you have, you know, you have the knowledge, you have the experience, you understand the client, the solution element is in your head. And the key, speaking to, you know, over the last kind of 15, 20 years, observing really high performing leaders who have done really great things, the secret sauce is in autonomy, isn't it? It's however you lead, and everyone has a different angle on how they lead based on their values, experience, etc. I think the objective is creating as much space to delegate and create as much autonomy and discretional effort in your people as you can. And the kind of the antithesis, maybe is the word, to that is hero mode. When we get a dopamine hit, where we go, well, hey, I can help. Like, I helped, ta-da, we fixed it. And actually all we do is we create like apathy, people that can't make decisions. And then we get that, is it okay if I send this email? And you're like, and as you said, Lisa, it's just an email. Like, it's probably not going to get read because it's an email. Like, pick up the phone, but that's a whole completely different subject. But I find it really interesting that between you both, my read from working with you for a number of years, and actually what you've just both said there in terms of your leadership style, you're both endeavoring to create autonomy, create agency in your people through slightly different means. You know, like Lisa's talked there about like role modeling, I guess, role modeling the behaviors, the confidence, the solutions. And Sarah, my read on your method there is a delegative kind of set the parameters for success, and then off you go, and more structured, we'll kind of check back in. And neither one is better than the other. It'd be really interesting experiment. Don't do this right now with the market the way it is, but it'd be a really interesting experiment to just completely flip who you led for a couple of months and see how they react to the contrasting leadership style.
We actually have done that this year. Well, we haven't flipped. I started managing someone that Lisa was previously managing, and it's been a really interesting process, actually. Just it's helped us see that we are quite different in our styles on a day-to-day basis, and I think we probably thought we were more similar than we were. And I think it's definitely helped in a lot of ways, and I actually think we should probably think about doing it in the other way as well, which we haven't done. It was just situational. It wasn't that we came up with this amazing idea to do a management swap, but it has been really eye-opening, and I think it's had a positive effect because, you know, it had this management from Lisa that's created all this discipline and this work ethic and this, you know, and then now like that person's been given that kind of autonomy and that, you know, structure and a little bit more freedom maybe, and I think it's definitely had positive impact, but it's only been a couple of months, so we'll see.
So there's literally like a little golden nugget there for anyone that's watching or listening. You know, you both have the benefit of being co-founders, you know, co-owners and leaders in the business to be able to do that. And maybe there's something for you to take away and reflect on that actually could a hypothesis be for the future of leading people in the business, that actually people are led by one of you first, and then as they get competent, they're led by the other. Like, it's just a hypothesis, and you've said it's only been a couple of months, but I think we can be on the hamster wheel as leaders and just heads down and go. But actually, maybe there's a little kind of seminal moment here where there's something in that leadership model between the two of you.
While we're in this sort of reflective mode, I think it'd be really good just to hear from you. What challenges have you faced? We've heard about how well it's worked and what you've done over the last couple of years that we've known you, but we've got quite a few or several co-founders, co-CEOs in terms of some of the startups that we're supporting. And I think it'd be great just to hear if there's anything you do differently as co-founders and co-owners. What struggles have you had that our listeners could take away and not fall into the same trap?
I mean, we do so many things differently, everything probably, but no, I think some of the things that really stand out, and we've kind of touched on, but we were just kind of telling everybody what to do, but we weren't teaching them how to do it. And I don't think we quite realised that until it was a bit too late. Suddenly we had everybody that relied on us for everything, and it became very overwhelming when the market got really busy. We'd hired a lot more people, and suddenly we'd realised, oh, actually we've done this, and it's our fault. Now we have to try and reverse it. And I think sometimes in that situation, it's quite easy to look at everyone else and be like, oh, why are they coming to me? Why can't they do this? Why can't they do that? And I think we suddenly thought, actually, it's not about them at all. Like, we've taught them to do things this way. We've told them it's okay to do things this way. And now we're moaning about it. So I think that was the biggest thing that we learned. And I definitely think we've addressed that in a lot of ways. The second thing is just we were so afraid to make mistakes. And I think like me and Lisa aren't afraid and ourselves to make mistakes, but we were just so afraid about everyone else making mistakes. So everything had to be checked, or we don't want to, that can't go out, like this could happen, it would be terrible. And we just had this whole idea in our head that if like the tiniest thing went wrong, like the business would go under and everyone would hate us. And, so I think that that's the other thing that stands out to me is like we have to be able to let them make mistakes and not persecute them for it afterwards. Like, just talk about how we'll do things differently. It's not going to be the end of the world. We're not saving lives. Like, if they send a wrong email or post something that's incorrect on LinkedIn, it really doesn't matter. And I think we've had to take a step back and learn from that ourselves, because we've been hindering their growth in so many ways, I think, and then our own.
I agree. I totally agree with all of that. And I think like we have been quite inefficient in our time, because we've been duplicated. At the beginning, we were probably duplicating our roles, and then we sort of sat down and went, right, what are you good at? What are we good at? What am I good at? And then we kind of split those up a bit. But I also, to the point about everything being checked and triple checked, we weren't very, basically what I'm trying to say is we weren't very efficient in our, leadership or management of the business. And I think, Ben, you actually raised some, we were sending out a proposal and it was being checked by 3 people. And Ben was like, is that a good use of your time? Like, what I think the client would prefer it to have come, 2 hours ago and only one of you checked it, and maybe there's a spelling mistake on it, and they, rather than wait 2 hours and 3 of you have wasted your time.
Thank you. Like the humility you both have is fantastic. And I think it's that kind of ongoing, like, no one's finished, are they? No one's finished. And it's just that ongoing process of developing. When you talked about like minimum viable product there of like a proposal, when we started the business, I would post stuff on LinkedIn and Ben would just very casually send me a little WhatsApp with an image just circling the 10 typos in the post. And I'd be like, thanks, mate, because I don't see them at all. And there's fewer now.
Yeah, we're getting there.
We're getting there. My grammar's getting there. Yeah. But I think it's really interesting. Like, we all have blind spots, and I think the true benefit of a partnership in running a business, it's more fun. I think it's fun in the good times, isn't it? And it's fun in the crappy times as well, because you're kind of in it together and you dig yourself out. But also, you've got someone who's got your back, and you complement each other, but also you differ. And I think that I've always been a massive fan of partnerships. And and finding ways to do stuff that works with other people you get on with.
I think we can resonate with exactly what you said, actually. So in year one, or the end of year one, we started to duplicate effort. We spoke for the first year, we duplicated effort, and then we split out our roles. And then at the end of almost year two, even those roles, we then found that we were not out of our depth, but the business had grown so quickly and so well that actually we then needed experts to come in and take over some of those specific roles. And then at the end of year three, we found that we just want to be more strategic and focus on the growth. So we don't need to be doing those roles anymore. It's far more effective to bring people in each of those areas as well, which that sort of timeline and that growth trajectory has worked really well.
I think we would have brought other people in probably sooner as well, in terms of, maybe, we've now got amazing accountants and external finance people, but that took a long while to sort out. And I feel like that humbled us a lot in terms of 2023. We were chasing revenue. This is just, from a business point of view, we're like, everything's going up and up and up in terms of revenue. We just weren't looking at our cost base. So, we had to adjust that like a lot of people quite quickly. And that was really humbling. But, if we'd sorted that out earlier in the business and had somebody, looking at our profit line, it would have been probably saved us a lot of angst in 2023. But, we live and learn. So that's probably another thing.
And I also think that the roles that me and Lisa don't enjoy doing, we're very good at just being like, oh, you do that, and then we don't want anything to do with it. And I think that also burned us in 2022, because we were like, we don't want anything to do with that. It's boring. We just want to focus on all the fun stuff. So we're like, we're going to pass this over, and you do that. And we kind of didn't want anything to do with it. We took our eye off the ball. And whilst it's good to delegate, we still need to be tracking how that's going and where we are. There has to be some sort of communication on it. And I think we kind of went too far the other way on that when we separated our roles out, and then that shot us in the foot. So there's a balance. And I think just because it's part of the job we don't like, we can't ignore it. It's not going away. We have to face it.
Yeah.
So, and I think from what you've said, just to sort of close off this little section then, the three nuggets or snippets of learning that I think we can give to our listeners then, from what you've said, where you can, ask and coach rather than direct tell and do it yourself. It's okay to fail, but fail fast and learn from where you failed. Just to review your processes and be more effective and efficient.
Yeah.
You're not always the right person to do the job, and probably in most cases you're duplicating effort as well when you are doing that task or that process.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're approaching the magic 30-minute mark, which we're trying to stick to. But I know it's flown by, Sarah. You're always like, wow, how does that happen? And no Bella. Bella hasn't made an appearance yet.
Fortunately not.
We need to get on.
Bella is Sarah's dog, everyone. She's
sulking.
Yeah?
She's
Bella's
sulking outside the door.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay. So we'll ask the last question. So the last question is, for us, like we founded the business and called the business West Peak based on like a concept of skill acquisition. So you learn a little bit of knowledge and you become super dangerous because you think you've reached the summit, but actually it's a false summit. And then you get to that and you're like, crap, there is a lot more to learn. So I'd love for each of you just to share. It can be from 15 West, it can be from Goldman Sachs, Lisa, back in the day, wherever it might be. Like what's been a West Peak moment for you in your careers so far? And I'm going to go Lisa first.
I think it relates back to what we were talking about before. I think at the sort of Q4 2022 of 15 West, we were like 2 years in, we were, running around New York, we were making good money. Everyone, some our consultants had built 150k quarters, and everything was set. Like we'd sort of got a great vision. We'd done our values together as a business, and everybody was communicating. We were flying everyone to New York. We were all together, and it was like, yeah, this is it. We've done really well, and sort of all giving ourselves a pat on the back. And I think the kind of the humbling moment was probably in Q1 2023 when the market shifted and we had to really sort of dig deep and focus on driving the business and protecting people's jobs, and making sure we didn't, we were running the business as efficiently as we can. And like we said, up until that point, we'd been really focused on chasing revenue and, delivering to our clients at any cost. And we realised that some of the structures we put in the business just weren't efficient and profitable, and we had to adjust various things during that first quarter of 2023.
my first role as this is not at 15 West, but my first role as a leader, I first got promoted to a manager. I'd worked really hard to get there. It's when I used to work in travel, and I finally got to this point, recognized as this leader. I was like, I've made it, I've done it. I've got this huge team of 10 people and it's great, and everyone, thinks I'm amazing. And then suddenly, like in the next kind of 2 or 3 months after that, I just got humbled so quickly and realizing I'd been given this title, but it just didn't make me a great manager and have a great team. Like I had to follow that up and put in the work. And there was a lot of little things I was doing that had such a big impact. I think I wasn't kind of living the values that I was telling my team to do, but then I couldn't understand why they weren't respecting me anyway. And that just all had a bit, they say fish rots from the head down. That's kind of what happened quite quickly. I had to readjust my leadership style and kind of start from scratch again. But I think that was probably my other West Peak moment when I first started in a leadership role.
That's all too common, isn't it? You get promoted into this position because you've been great at the job you're doing, and then suddenly you find yourself in leading 10, 20, 30 people. You've never been trained or had the skills to do it effectively. So then you can't be the highest bidder and you can't be an effective leader as well. So you're failing in both areas.
Exactly. And I remember my manager at the time, she'd kind of said to me, why do you think all your team are showing up late, or they're not prepared for meetings, or they're, doing these things? And I was like, I don't know. I keep telling them to do that. And she was like, well, do you show up on time? And I was like, oh no, I probably don't. And she was like, well, yeah, that's why then. And I was like, oh right, okay. So I can't just be a leader and they'll do what I say. I have to lead by example. And I think that was the first time I'd kind of really seen that at a young age.
I was going to say that actually fits into a question that popped up as you were talking. Do you have anybody who is inspirational? And also, could we get them on the podcast next if they are still alive and kicking?
I have two actually. So first in recruitment. No, it's not you guys, I'm afraid. But maybe. No, my first boss in recruitment, a lady called Ruella James. She's very much in the industry, so you should get her on the podcast. But Ruella Crouch, her business is Ruella James, and she taught me process. I didn't have a good process before. And she kind of hammered that into me for 4 years. And I think that's the biggest thing that I instill in my team on a day-to-day basis. She was a really big mentor for me. She kind of really led in a very empathetic way. She was super supportive, but the process and the discipline was always there. And I think that kind of taught me to have that balance. But if you don't have the process, you have nothing, basically.
You said two people.
Oh, sorry. The other is my dad. But you can't get him on the podcast. Well, you can if you want, okay. But it just instilled my work ethic into me. I think that's why I always worked so hard and kind of wanted to be the best at everything I could be. So
I think that's a good next season. Family members of all of our first season guests, and we'll actually hear the truth behind their stories.
Sara Mcphee, this is your life.
Yeah, I think I was thinking about this and in terms of previous managers and stuff. I think when I worked at Goldman Sachs and when I worked in M&A, actually, I think what I took out of those jobs was probably how not to lead, which is like in Goldman's, it was very much a culture of you're lucky to be here, and aren't you? You're the best of the best, and having that drummed into you all of the time, and making sure you were the last to leave after your boss, and was corporate rubbish. So I kind of took that into I didn't want our business to be ever like that, or my own business to ever be like that. And M&A, I had a bit of a strange boss as well, which I won't bore you with. But so kind of just previous bosses, probably not, but. I mean, Sara definitely inspired me when we worked together at Paddington. So, yeah, because she is that process-driven person, but she balances it so well with being really close to her employees and her colleagues. And, yeah, she's got a very good balance between getting the best out of people, basically, and being friends with them as well. So that inspired me. But, I would also say my family, my mum and dad, because my dad, just... was sort of brought up in Motherwell in the suburbs of Glasgow. Sorry, I'm not getting emotional. I've just got And but it's an interesting story. He had to go and meet his dad from the railway, working on the railways, so that his dad didn't go and spend the money in the pub, so that they had enough to eat, type of thing. So, all these stories that I grew up with, and he got out of Motherwell, and no offense to anyone in Motherwell, but he went abroad. He worked in Ghana, in Bahrain, in East Africa, in Paris, and in Singapore, and that's definitely inspired me from seeing the world point of view as well, and why we wanted to be why I wanted to have an international business. I mean, I would have loved to go and live in New York, but Sarah got that gig. So my dad definitely is an inspiration from a work ethic point of view, and how he kind of came from nothing. So
I think that's a really interesting point as well about that international piece, because I think that's probably something that drew you and me together quite a lot. I moved around a lot when I was younger. My parents lived abroad with his job, and I think we've always had this like itch of what's next. Okay, where are we going to go now? And like the sky's the limit. Whereas I think if you haven't had that kind of upbringing, you do kind of focus on what's right in front of you in the area you're in. So I think that's added an interesting dynamic to the business and how we run it.
Brilliant. And actually, sorry, I need to talk about my mother. She's 82 years old and she's still working, and she's probably my female idol, because she brought up 3 children in Lagos when there was a civil war going on and various other things. So I would say I've got a shout out to my mother, who's like the youngest 82-year-old you'll ever come across.
Lisa, what's your mother's name?
Gillian.
Okay, shout out to Gillian. And Sarah, your dad's name?
David,
there we go.
Gillian, David, they're the next pair. We'll get
we'll get them on. We'll get them on as a duo.
They can do their own podcast.
Look, both of you, we love working with you and supporting 15 West. Everyone who's tuned in and listening, if you are in the recruitment business, staffing business, search business, whatever you want to call it, you should be speaking to and working with 15 West to support you. We love working with you both and really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for your openness, your humility, and just the energy you brought to the conversation.
Thanks guys, appreciate you inviting us on.